didn't think to record this, but I should absolutely put this up on YouTube because a lot of you guys that have no tournament experience don't understand. The absolute, let me give you the backstory. Let me give you the backstory because I'm recording now. One of the homies in the chat looking to start running Guilty Gear events. His name is Mills, though. MILLZTHOO. So if you're watching this later and you like Guilty Gear, go ahead and give him a follow and check him out because he's basically my partner from like a decade ago and shit. And so he's going to be running Guilty Gear events. And we were discussing live on stream, just having a little powwow about running events. See, I've been running my Beef Set League, and it's been doing okay. It's growing slowly but surely, right? He wants to do something similar with Guilty Gear. We were wanting to leverage some of my community and viewership and all of that to help build his own Guilty Gear League. But we got into the topic of starting, right? And I said, okay, the game doesn't come out for a couple of months, right? What is it, June, July? I forget. I don't really care. I just fucking buy them, right? If I can buy it, I will just buy it. I don't follow that shit. But he has time before the game comes out. And I was like, right now, you should be setting up your tournament stuff, like setting up your Smash GG, starting to get interest from people that you know, start doing all that shit so when the game drops, you could just, bam, go. Right, and so he brought up a point. Well, I'm going to wait until about a month after the game releases to do this. And then once the game releases, a month later, boom, we can have our first tournament. And I was explaining to him why that's a bad idea. If you're trying to get into tournaments or you're trying to host tournaments, the history has proven that the absolute best time ever to do anything with fighting game tournaments is the first day immediately. Like if there was a midnight release, you would be doing a midnight release tournament. That is like the quickest and easiest way for any kind of success in fighting games. If you are a tournament organizer, it gives you an opportunity while interest is super high, right? Interest is super high, so you can have your event, and if people enjoy it, they'll have a good impression, they'll come back, you can start growing that base. And the thing is, game interest is like game sales. We all know, we're gamers, that a game's best sales are always like the first month of release, right? That's why they want you to pre-order, there's day one bonuses and all that, because they make their money when the hype is high, right when the game drops. It's the same thing for video game events. When a game is new, it's in the news cycle, people are talking about it, it's on, IGN, and Reddit is going crazy. When people are talking about it, that's when people are more interested to go to events. And when it's a brand new fighting game, this is why it's important as a player to always be there on day one. If it's a brand new fighting game, you get a new influx of people. You will get the influx of people who were maybe not so good at the fighting games that are out, but they have solid enough fundamentals to like carry them through a bracket, so they want to take advantage of people coming in that don't know shit, and they can get further placings and maybe build a reputation within the scene. There are going to be new people who have never been involved in anything, right? And this is like their first hearing of the game. When somebody is new to a game and new to a community, it's always good to be the first tournament that they go to and give them that first impression, because that first impression to that new player who's new to the game or the genre is going to matter a lot, right? Because everybody has their first tournament. So those kind of people are going to be there. And then also you're going to have the veterans who are, they were killing it in like the previous game of that series. Like if it's Guilty Gear, for example, we used, there's going to be veterans popping up. So your player pool for your events is not going to be any higher than it ever will be on day one. The idea with running events, especially in fighting games, is not to like grow them, but it is to stop the bleed. And that's why most events always run multiple games, because as interest in a game dies with it getting old, you have your core audience, but you're getting very few new people coming, right? There's like, if you were running a regular Street Fighter 3 Third Strike tournament, you would see maybe 1 or 2 new people a week, which would be different from having, like, if Marvel vs. Capcom 4 dropped right now, you'd have 1,000 people at your local And you know, if you were having a tournament, you'd have ridiculous turnouts. And then the idea is those 1,000 people, how do I keep them coming back, right? How do I stop the bleed? And then when the next game comes along, you know, fucking Street Fighter 8, right? Then you're going to get another 1,000 people dropping into your tournament. And then you stop the bleed. And then hopefully some of those guys cross over to the last game, right? And then now you have people involved in both of your games. But that's kind of how fighting game events work, and that's kind of how you grow an audience. And it's very, very similar with streaming and Twitch as it is with offline. So if you want to start running like events, or you want to start running tournaments for a fighting game, your absolute best time to get involved is right when the game drops, because the interest and the hype and the excitement will not be any higher than it is on day one. I mean, if there's like a really cool tournament, like say there's like a world championships and it's an exciting final, sometimes that will draw interest to your events. People that maybe checked out that tournament will want to see more, and they'll come to yours. But like those kind of gains and that kind of growth is just, it's minuscule. Like you're never going to be gaining more people than you're losing the older the game goes on. So think of fighting games, if you're trying to start a stream or a tournament or an event, think of fighting games as hookers. Their most expensive day is their first day. It's all downhill after day one. And that's kind of the big and small of running fighting game events. Or that's the big and small of when should you start running fighting game events? As soon as possible, right? It's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market, right? Start it. If you love Guilty Gear, the game comes out. Have your events ready so that way you can go on day one.